Well, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to our second Q&A session here today with questions posted from all producers that need some help with their livestock guardian dogs. My name is Bill Costanzo. I'm the Livestock Guardian Dog Research Specialist here at the AgriLife Center in San Angelo. And I'm just going to go through some questions. If you have any that you didn't post to the event post on Facebook, feel free to go ahead and post those, and I'll try to get to them if we have time today. So the first question that had a couple votes was, what age should a Great Pyrenees be able to guard livestock on a farm? And so I would say that really depends on the size of the dog and the maturity level of the dog, but it's definitely going to be around 8 to 10 months of age. And if you have a smaller dog or just a single dog, they really shouldn't be placed on their own until they're at least 12, 14 months of age. If you have an older dog, definitely go ahead and place a younger dog with them. It's a good way for the younger dog to kind of learn the ropes and learn some things from the older dog that you have. But I hope that answers your question on when to put a dog out. The next question that we get, and I get this question pretty frequently, is what age do we recommend to spay or neuter your livestock guardian dog? There's a lot of good information, surprisingly, out there on the internet on ages of large dogs and when to spay or neuter them. However, most of that research wasn't done with livestock guardian dogs. And so based on a conversation from a veterinarian at the Texas A&M vet school that I had, we're going to continue to spay and neuter our dogs right around 10 months of age. And that does depend on the size of the dog and the maturity level. But we want to make sure that none of our dogs are going to start roaming, looking for a mate to breed. And so based on conversations that I've had with several very long-time livestock guardian dog breeders who've had these dogs for 30, some of them even 40 years, that have been raising and selling these dogs, they feel that livestock guardian dogs have an extremely strong breeding instinct. And so if you get them spayed or neutered, at a little bit younger age, you can definitely decrease that chance of them possibly roaming, looking for a mate. If you've ever had a livestock guardian dog that is roaming, it's extremely difficult to stop that behavior. And so if you can take away something that has a chance of starting them to roam, you're probably better off. And we haven't seen any, genetic problems that weren't already showing in the dog come up after getting them spayed or neutered at that age. And we haven't seen any issues with mature size either in the dogs. The next question we had is, and I do get this question an awful lot, any advice on training a dog to guard chickens? It's pretty difficult to, train a livestock guardian dog to guard chickens or to guard poultry in general. You definitely have to take some time with it. And although that's not something that, is my specialty, I can put you in contact with somebody who uses livestock guardian dogs to guard a couple thousand free-range hens, and he's very successful at that. But you definitely want to take your time. You do have to understand that you're going to have some probably sacrificial birds of some sort as the dog is learning how to act and behave with them. They just, chickens become a play toy, and you have to expect that in that training process. And so, what I think is the best method is to, get the dog on a leash or tethered. And, hopefully you've got a helper where you can control the dog and somebody else can bring over the birds to him and let them sniff them and let the birds walk around, or make sure the dog isn't going to, reach down and grab the chicken. And just do this over several weeks and just really take your time with it. And definitely don't let the dogs out there unsupervised at all, until you're feeling comfortable, until they're past that maturity stage of, about 18 months. After that, the dogs should be probably pretty calm, and they should have learned, that their job is to guard the poultry by that point. Next question that I have up, producer has, 4-month-old livestock guarding dog, and it wants to lay on his porch rather than guard his stock. And he wanted to know how to teach her not to be doing that. Well, I guess the first thing that I would say is, anytime that she's not where she's supposed to be, you definitely need to discipline her and, not reward her with any type of treats or food. If she's on the back porch, and this is the same with any livestock guardian dog. If they, if you have a large ranch and they show up at your headquarters, I know everybody gets busy, and a lot of times it's easier just to take the dog and chain them or put them in a kennel for a bit before you take them back. You really just need to stop and take them back immediately, and not feed them and not be nice to them at all. They need to know that if they've left their livestock for some reason, that behavior is not acceptable. And so that would be the biggest things. No food or treats in some place where there's no livestock. Never feed them away from livestock or give them any type of treats away from livestock. And the other couple questions I had for that producer, and I don't know if you've logged on here today or not, but I was kind of curious, if the dog was with your sheep from birth, or was she bonded with sheep? Did you buy her bonded? Did you try to bond her? What happened? There could be some issues there with how strong the bond is. And for some reason, a lot of people like to wait or think that they can wait and not get a dog, that's weaned and put them with livestock right away. You definitely need to bond them with livestock before 14 to 16 weeks of age. There's a developmental period in the dog's brain that goes on, and by that point in time, that developmental period is ending. And so a lot of times they'll still turn out to be, good livestock guardian dogs, but the bond that could have been formed will be much weaker after that time period in the dog. Next question we had, how long should a livestock guardian dog wear a yoke? This person had a problem with their dog getting through the fence, and they wanted to know if it'll solve roaming. I guess, it kind of depends on the age of the dog and how long that they've been, already going through the fence. If you follow our Facebook page and the blog that I write, you'll know that we've had some dogs right when they were released from the bonding pen, they started roaming and roaming a lot. And this was last year's round of dogs, and it was Doc and Thelma, and Louise to a point too. And so we placed yokes on the dogs, and it stopped that roaming behavior immediately. Now, I took them off after a couple weeks, and within a day or two, they started roaming again. And so I ended up leaving the yokes on them until they ended up going out to one of our research ranches. And the yokes stopped that behavior. The main problem that you have with yokes is if you're on a larger operation or you're using a self-feeder inside of a feeding station, the dogs can't get into the feeding station with a yoke on them. And so you have to either hand feed the dogs, or you just have to accept the fact that, your sheep and goats are probably going to get into the self-feeder and eat some of the dog's food. Now, will it solve roaming permanently? I would probably say no. If you're trying to find like a permanent solution, you need to look at some other things that may be causing the roaming, such as, is your dog spayed or neutered? Putting up a better quality fence. If you have a good fence, maybe electrify it, run some hot wire on the top and on the bottom. That's really worked well for us with dogs in the bonding project that we have. We've seen a dramatic decrease in the dogs roaming as adults that were bonded in pens with hot wire. And so how do you fix the dog once they are roaming? Well, it's really difficult. It can be done, but it's a combination of using the yokes, having hot wire, and most likely probably also having a electric shock collar, or even maybe putting in an invisible fence system. I did work with a fellow researcher up at the Oklahoma State. They had some dogs on their property up there for livestock guardian dogs, and he had a dog that was roaming an awful lot. And so I worked with him, and we were able to correct that dog. But it took about 2 months, and like I said, it took yokes and hot wire and shock collars to change that dog's behavior. And the dog hasn't roamed now in probably about 6 months, and I think that dog is probably trained not to roam anymore. Next question. What are my thoughts about related or same-sex livestock guardian dog pairings? For example, a mother and daughter team working together. Well, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in this session, I think that's a great idea. After you've put some time training a puppy, running them through the bonding pen for a few months, going through and doing all the socialization and leash training, tether training, all those kind of different things that you want to do with your pup. Once they get to be 6 or 8 months old, if you have a low amount of predators and you've got an older dog that's not too old, that is related to that pup, or even if it isn't related, definitely use that dog to, help you train the younger pup that's coming up. It does seem to work pretty well. Next question. Can you retrain a livestock guardian dog to bond to livestock once they've bonded to each other? This producer had 2 pups. They kept them together, and he says they do a great job, but they're more interested in playing with each other most of the time. Well, I guess I would say, it sounds like these 2 dogs are still fairly young, and they need a little bit of time to mature. You'll get a lot of playful behavior, especially with a pair of dogs, even if they're not related. Starting, around that 8 to 10 month mark, all the way through 18 months, and some even longer than that. It really kind of depends on the dogs and the breed that they are and how fast they're maturing. I would probably give them some time. If you can separate them and put them in 2 different areas, I would definitely recommend that. The sooner that you can do that, probably the better. We've had issues with pairs of dogs, and once they were separated, they worked great, and they didn't have any issues. And then, they can be brought back together later on once they're mature, and they work just fine together. So, I wouldn't say they're, to probably give up on them or they're probably ruined or anything like that. They didn't include an age on those dogs. So, again, I'm just assuming that they're probably young pups that need some time to mature still. And I'll try to get to, I see there's some comments there. I'll try to get to those after we get through the questions that were already posted. The next producer question was they wanted to know about feeding their livestock guarding dog raw rabbit. They apparently raise New Zealand rabbits, and they wanted to know how much their dog should get. I guess my first thing is, we don't really recommend that you feed your dogs any type of raw meat. Obviously, if you've got a hunting lease on your property and you've got hunters, they're going to end up over at the gut pile, and they're going to eat the gut pile, and they're going to definitely eat, dead lambs or kids that they find, or even try to consume whole ewes or nannies, and any afterbirth that they get. But on a regular basis, it can lead to some deficiencies in their diet. And a lot of people think that domesticated dogs have the same type of digestive and nutrient needs that wild dogs do. And that's definitely not true. Domesticated dogs have evolved over time, and they need to have things like carbohydrates in their diet to keep them healthy. And so the best thing to do is really to feed your dog, a good commercial kibble, and one that has animal protein of some sort as the first ingredient, And if you want to supplement with, raw treats of some sort, whether it's bones or, if you have dead lambs or kids and you don't want to pick them up, they'll definitely clean them up and eat them for you. But on a regular basis, yeah, we wouldn't recommend that you do that. The dogs can pick up bacterial infections from raw meat, like E. coli or salmonella, just like humans can, and that can even be passed on to other animals. So, next one: any advice on how to bond livestock guardian dogs with cattle? Well, basically, you're going to have to start slow. With a good strong bonding pen. I would definitely start with some smaller calves, probably heifer calves that you're planning on keeping. And, just as we do with the sheep or goats, rotate those animals out of the bonding pen every few weeks, and just go very slow with it. The dogs will scare the cattle. The cattle can definitely scare and injure the dogs. So you definitely have to take it slow with that. If the producer that was asking about those questions, if you want to just email me or Facebook message me, I would definitely recommend that you contact Dan Macon out in California. He works for the UC Davis Cooperative Extension there, and he's been working on a livestock guardian dog cattle bonding project for the last few months. And he's a really good guy to talk to, has a lot of information. Very similar position that he has as I do. It's just funded a little bit differently. But yeah, contact Dan Macon out in California at the UC Davis Cooperative Extension. You can just Google his name and you can get his contact information, or get a hold of me and I can give that to you also. The next question that was posted, what recommendations do we have for stopping like resource guarding, and if there's any specific training? I guess the main thing that I do is, I start with the puppies, and if I see any type of aggressive behavior in the puppies that we have in the bonding pen, around the feeding stations, or when they're getting treats or food or anything like that, I stop that behavior right then and there. And I think that's the best method, is to start, as soon as possible. As soon as you see it happening in young pups, because it'll show up in the young pups, stop it then instead of waiting until later on. The older that they get, the more difficult that it's going to be to stop that behavior. And, you can end up getting bit in the process. So, if you're hand feeding the dogs and, and they've already gotten older, or they're, maturing at this point, definitely feed them a good distance apart. So there's no chance of one becoming aggressive over the other if they see them eating some food. If you're using a self feeder in like a feeding station, you may end up having to go to 2 different stations in 2 different locations on the property, so that one of the dogs can always get in the feeder, or they can both get in at the same time, but in different areas again. Usually the dogs kind of seem to work things out on their own, but I know sometimes it can get, very aggressive, and, there definitely can be some serious injuries happen. And so, if you have some specific things, I could talk about this one for a while, but probably just, send me a Facebook message, and I can send you some more information on some things to do and some things to try and work with on your dogs. But again, the easiest method is just to stop it, when they're younger. The last question before I get to some stuff that y'all have been posting. This gentleman or lady has a 1.5-year-old livestock guardian dog. It says it's in good health and good weight, all up to date on shots, and very good with sheep. But she's not eating consistently, and I'll skip a day or two between eating, but she never turns away her treats. And also he said that she hasn't been spayed. So I guess my first thing is, I would recommend that you get her spayed as soon as possible, unless you plan on, breeding this dog. One, so she doesn't get, bred by another dog and end up having a litter of pups too early, or you're just stuck with a bunch of pups that are mixed breed or something, she should be at the right age and size by that point in time to have that done, and that'll keep her from roaming for you. But as far as the other things, it's pretty normal for our dogs here at the center to not eat every day. And I think it just really depends on the dog. We've got some dogs that eat every day and eat large amounts of food every day. And I have other dogs that, sometimes I wonder, how they even survive because they eat so little. And, it doesn't really make a difference, I don't think, in age or breed. I see it across all the dogs that we have. But there are some issues during certain times of the year, although we aren't really at that point now. But when it gets into the hotter months and more humidity, you definitely have to watch the consumption. They will definitely, even dogs that are eating well all the time, will slow off on the amount of food that they're consuming. And a lot of the reason why is because the food will spoil before they can eat it all if you're using a self-feeder, for instance. Or even if you have it just in a bag and you're hand feeding. In days that are really hot, and if you're in a part of Texas that has high humidity, it's a little bit more expensive, but either buy smaller bags or, keep the food in an area that's a little bit more temperature controlled. It can spoil really, really fast, especially if you're feeding a higher quality feed that has more fat and protein to it. Those seem to spoil sometimes even faster. And so you may not notice it, but your dog will definitely know just by the smell that the feed's going bad or has gone bad already. And so you'll look in the feeder and say, man, this thing's full. I don't know why my dog's not eating it. Well, it's because the food is spoiled already. So try not to put, in the warmer months more than, a couple days worth of food at a time, or switch over to hand feeding and just feed them larger amounts, and skip every other day or so to keep them healthy and to keep, the right amount of nutrition with them. Let's see what kind of questions we have in the comments over here so far. So one of the questions is they've got a 3-year-old Akbash male that wants to chase the sheep and bite on the little ones. And they have to keep them separated from the sheep, and they want to know how to fix that. At that point, in that age, that's definitely not like rough play anymore. They should be mature by that point in time. And so I would say that behavior probably started, and you may not have just caught it, when they were maturing. And so now the dog thinks that behavior is okay. You could try a dangle stick. Those have worked fairly well for us with problem dogs. And basically, if you don't know what a dangle stick is, it's just a length of chain that you attach to the dog's collar. It's got a swivel at both ends and a piece of 2x4 across the bottom. It's best if you use an eye bolt that goes all the way through it with like a locking nut on the end, and it keeps it from unscrewing as the dog moves around. But as they go to run or chase anything, that dangle stick will hit them, right in the middle of the legs where they don't have a lot of muscle. And so that leg bone will get fairly sore after a little while, and they won't want to run. Or it just gets caught up in their legs as they try to chase, and they end up falling, and the other animal that they're chasing gets away. If you've tried a dangle stick and that hasn't worked, especially on a 3-year-old, I might recommend that you go to a electric shock collar. The one nice thing about those is you can leave the dogs out there. You don't have to keep them separated. And anytime you see them, doing something bad, some sort of bad behavior, you can just give them a little stimulus, and that'll correct that behavior. They work pretty well. You just have to, not overuse them. And it's one reason why I don't recommend them to a lot of producers. I try to do other things first, like yokes and dangle sticks or a drag. Um, a drag is something else that you could try, depending on your pasture situation, whether if it's clear or not. Chain drags or a tire drag work really well. To keep the dogs from chasing stock and biting them. So hopefully that helps you out. If not, send me a message and I can send you some information on drags and dangle sticks and that kind of thing also. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions that have been posted here today. So I think we're going to go ahead and end this session. I appreciate everybody logging on today. And if you'd like to continue seeing these Q&A sessions, feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section there, and we'll keep doing these for you. Again, thank you guys for logging in, and hope everybody has a good day.